January 17, 1920. The 18th Amendment was just signed by President Woodrow Wilson, banning the import, export, manufacturing, and distribution of all consumable alcohols. A product that was the source of over 30% of all federal tax revenue, and a product that gave jobs to millions, was now illegal in the United States. Enforced by both federal and local authority, the percentage of alcohol consumption dropped 30% through the 1920s. However, law did not stop many from exploring new inventive ways to obtain and produce their own alcohol. Consumption of alcohol was legalized for religious and medical uses, so many were able to receive considerable amounts of alcohol through medical prescriptions and easily accessible communion wine located in cellars of the churches. Bathtub gin was also a well-known way to make cheap alcohol in the household, using grain alcohol, water, and juniper berry juice. However, such a cheap alcohol came at a high price. Poisonous ingredients were also found in the grain alcohol, such as formaldehyde, gasoline, acetone, and glycerin. Over the course of Prohibition, over 10,000 died from alcohol poisoning alone. Many deaths also resulted from the violence that Prohibition brought about. Those who sold and bought alcohol illegally were known as bootleggers, and the people running these bootlegging industries were the gangsters or mobsters. Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, and Meyer Lansky were the most notorious of the gangsters, building up million-dollar illegal industries through organized crime. Gang violence was another common cause of death during Prohibition in cities such as Chicago, New York, and New Jersey. However, down in the southern states, moonshine was gaining immense popularity, bringing in a new era for the Appalachians. Moonshine was originally brought to America by the Scotch-Irish, German, and English settlers prior to the American Revolution, but production was limited and unknown to many. Prohibition brought a new dawn for the moonshine, allowing for the exploration of new inventive ways to make it, and the re-encounter of the whiskey to the farmers and families of the Appalachians. Moonshine is an alcohol made by the fermentation and distillation of corn, a popular and abundant crop in the South, making it more easily accessible to the people of the Appalachians. The production and distribution of the Southern whiskey boomed, creating an industry in the South that transformed the economics, culture, and society of the developing Appalachians. However, the exchange of moonshine did not stay confined to the South for long. Bootlegging of the whiskey soon expanded moonshine to the rest of the United States.
Moonshine, though being around prior to the American Revolution, gained popularity during Prohibition for the reasons of it being easier to produce, buy, and sell. Originally, the whiskey-making process was brought to America by the Scotch-Irish, German, and English settlers, but not till many years later would the now well-known moonshine come of age. Previously, moonshine was made using dried fruit as its main ingredient. However, because that was more expensive during the time, the Southern farmers started exploring new ways to create whiskey, eventually leading to the moonshiners discovering that such alcohol could be manufactured through the fermentation and distillation of corn. The moonshine making process was like hillbilly science, smart yet unconventional. First, you start off with a corn crop and grind it into cornmeal to be distilled. Next, the cornmeal is soaked in hot water and sometimes even sugar is added, but the traditional moonshiners add malt to the cornmeal to convert the starch to sugar. Then, the yeast is put in to start the fermentation process. The makers use copper stills to make the moonshine in because it conducts heat well, yet it doesn't leach the alcohol. There's a stone furnace under the still that typically uses propane to heat the still to 172 degrees Fahrenheit. And as the pressure builds, the steam from the alcohol is forced through a pipe that leads out of the top of the still, called a cap arm. The steam then travels into the worm, which is a coiled length of pipe that travels down into the worm box, which is a crate or barrel filled with cold water, usually from a nearby creek. The worm box surrounds the worm and turns the alcohol steam into liquid. After all of this, the worm leads the liquid into a barrel, usually to be filtered one last time, resulting in a clear liquid we all know today as moonshine. This process would often occur at night in order to hide the steam produced from local authority, giving it its name, moonshine. Prohibition changed the moonshine-making process in various ways. The war on alcohol was not only a legal battle, but a moral battle against how these farmers supported their families. Many saw moonshine as not only an occupation, but as an identity to all the Appalachians. It was a way of resistance against outside source, and a tradition that became the basis for local stories and myths. Moonshine created a strong heritage in the Appalachians that many found great pride in during that time. Moonshine revolutionized the Appalachians by influencing its culture and society, for it was a turning point in the development of the Appalachians.
Moonshine also heavily impacted the economics of the Appalachians, as the exchange of the whiskey vigorously spread through the southern states. The knowledge and skills of making moonshine was rapidly becoming an identifying southern tradition and occupation, putting the economy at large in the South. Many families made a living off of making and selling moonshine. It was also a local craft that was passed down from generation to generation. Such a business thrived due to the dramatic increase of demand for alcohol as a result of the loss of supply through the country. All across Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, and the Carolinas, there were more than 2,000 stills illegally manufacturing moonshine during Prohibition, bringing in over $2 million each year to the Appalachian states. By selling the Southern whiskey to the bootleggers, it not only increased the economic stature of the South, but it allowed for the alcohol to be exchanged all throughout America. The bootleggers would buy the alcohol from the moonshiners and redistribute the moonshine in the major cities to the gangsters or other buyers. The exchange of moonshine boomed as an industry in the South and through the rest of the U.S. as well. America soon became thirstier for the whiskey, so the moonshiners in the Appalachians began generating more moonshine, bringing in even more money to the South. Moonshine radically transformed the economy of the South, increasing their economic stability and bringing in money to the major cities that were the heart of organized crime during the Prohibition.
The exploration of different ways to create moonshine led to the discovery of new, innovative ways to produce moonshine, which sparked an industry that rapidly spread throughout the entire country. The exchange of the moonshine dramatically influenced the economy of the South, as well as fed the entire alcohol rebellion that was upon the country in the 1920s and 30s. Today, moonshine has not only spread throughout the U.S., but it has expanded into Canada and into the UK, as well as the Caribbean and South Africa. The United States government now receives over $6 billion each year on the moonshine industry alone. Moonshine has forever altered the culture of the South, a culture that is still well alive today. Moonshine has created a rich heritage that many Southerners are now proud to be a part of. The explorations and exchange of moonshine during Prohibition has reworked the face of the Appalachians, revolutionizing the culture and society of the South and the economy of the entire nation.